welcome to my knitting channel. My name is Monica and this is my 2025 video stash down. I haven't kept up with monthly uploads. I think the last one was August, so I'm gonna give a recap of the month I haven't talked about and then give you the stats for the whole year. Well, it won't be the whole year because I started in May, but yeah, since May then, I guess. Before I start, I can tell you how much my stash started with. All in all of my stash now fits in this bookshelf. There are some pieces of yarn I don't keep in the bookshelf, mostly for convenience, like my mending jar, and this is a bowl of leftovers that I also used for mending, but this one I don't keep track of because it's only for mending, and this I do keep track of, which is something I started doing, I think, after August. All the rest of my yarn fits in this bookshelf and in this one box I have in front of me because I wanted to keep the fingering weight yarn leftovers separate from the rest. So technically I could move some stuff around here because it's very open right here, and it would have fit everything. I will probably do that eventually, but at the moment I couldn't be bothered to clean up my shelf. So yeah, I started this in May, counting all of my stash, and I ended up with, sorry, I got some probably cat hair or yarn stuck to my lips. Oh well. I started the year in May with 28,167 grams of yarn, which is more than 28 kilograms. And I thought that was a bit much. And I decided I wanted to stash down. I wanted to get rid of most of the yarn that I do not enjoy, but I also wanted to get rid of it by either using it or giving it away to someone who will actually use it and not just throw it away, because that seems a bit wasteful. So yeah, that's what my stash started with. I will mention it again in the end because I don't think you'll remember after I've gone through the other months. So yeah, at the end of August I had ended up with a stash of 25,917 grams, so it's already down over 2 kilos. And I was very pleased with that, and that's just the stash going down. It means that I do count incoming yarn into the stash and yarn that I have used up or given away as out of the stash. So I have not had a yarn buying ban. I have just wanted to try and stash down calmly and not feel any pressure to not buy yarn if I do need some for a project. So yeah, that's how I started this, I guess, quarter or something. So in September I started by making a baby bear suit for my sister. She had her baby in October. So she got her, it wasn't the full baby bear suit. I have the baby bear suit pattern, but I have only ever made the bonnet part, and made different types of ties. I have been terrible at remembering to take photos, so I do not have a picture of this baby bear suit bonnet thing, but I do have some of the leftover yarn, so I was thinking I should show that. I used this one. This is Lykkegarn in the colorway Vår I luften. And it is also a bit tangled. I probably need to rewind it. But anyway, this is the yarn I used. And I used only 40 grams, so this is still 60 grams left over. So that's a lot. And then I also bought a lot of yarn. I actually bought this yarn, which is by Permin, because I was planning on making a bridal gift for the end of January, and also I wanted something to hold this yarn with because I already have a very beautiful speckled multicolored sweater, and I wanted something more toned down so they weren't too similar. So holding this yarn with this yarn will probably make it more toned down, and it will be quite beautiful. But I bought 450 grams. But then I also finished another project, which I actually do have, which is this Seascape shawl, stole, and I don't remember. It's a Seascape at least, which was a very popular name in my pattern library apparently. This is a free pattern, and there are two different versions of it. One of them is charted and one of them is just written, and I knew immediately when I saw the charted one that I wouldn't like how that one looked, so I took the other one. And I didn't like how it was written. It wasn't very intuitive. It was a free pattern, so yeah. So I ended up drawing up the chart for it line by line for myself, just so I could try and figure out why I couldn't keep up with it, or couldn't find it very intuitive, and I understood why, because it wasn't very intuitive. So I made some changes to it, and it was too late to do the changes in this one. It would have looked very silly. So instead of having an actual shawl, I just bound off and decided I'm just going to use this as a neck sheath or something. Yeah, I still like it. It's very beautiful. It's this is also made of Rauma by Permin, so it is kind of like a fake mohair, but in my opinion better because it's cashmere and merino and silk. So this is not itchy to me, while other mohairs I have tried I do find itchy. So yeah, I haven't used it a lot, mostly because I haven't left the house a lot, but that's a different story. If you want to hear about what's been going on the past few months, you'll have to come back to one of my regular episodes. But yeah, this was a project that only used 22 grams. So it is a very, very lightweight yarn, very fluffy, very beautiful. But again, didn't take a lot out of my stash, sadly. And then I had to buy a ball of yarn to finish a project that I didn't finish in September, but I did finish it later on, so I will show you afterwards. And that's all that I got in September, but I did also get two other things out. One thing is I gave away some yarn to my grandma because she needed it to finish a project. So I gave away 150 grams. Very pleased with that because I wasn't using it anyway, so she could use it. Good for her. And then I fixed my champagne cardigan. I don't remember if I talked about it on the podcast. I planned on talking about it, but I found that I had knit the button band way too tight and without buttonholes because I wasn't planning on using it as a cardigan I could close. But I was filled with regret, so I fixed that. And also, it annoyed me that I didn't have a pocket, so I made a pocket. So the fix in itself didn't actually use a lot of yarn, but the pocket did. So all in all, I used 63 grams of this acrylic yarn. This cardigan I'm planning on using at the office, that's why it's acrylic, so it's easier to just leave there and it will not start to smell or something. And if it does get stained, it doesn't matter because it was cheap, it's fine. So yeah, that was all of September. So in September I did actually accumulate more yarn than I got out of stash. I'm just gonna move this one away. And I ended up with a surplus of 200 grams, which was annoying, but that's just how it is. Okay, so in October, we had another baby shower. No, that was not a baby shower, that was a birthday, first year birthday for my niece. She also got a baby bear suit. This one in Qing fibre, so I think it's a yak blend or something. I think it's called yak singles. I don't remember the colorway, but I think it might be dusk. This is the leftovers. I used up 60 grams because this is for a 1-year-old instead of a newborn. And to be honest, I love that result. I do actually have a photo, so I will put it up over here. One of the few times when I actually do have a photo, even though I don't have the finished object. And I must say, I really liked how that one ended up. Sadly, the 1-year-old do not like wearing hats, so yeah, that's a struggle for the parents, I guess. Yeah. Then I also had to buy more yarn again for the same project that I had to buy more yarn for last time. There's 2 yarns held together, and first I ran out of the Alpaca silk, and now I ran out of the Rauma Fivel. Very annoying. I didn't need a lot either, so some of it is in here as mending. I did give away some of it too, because I didn't want to have it in my stash. But yeah, I had to buy more, but I also did get the project finished in October. So I can show you. It's my Slanting Slipover, which I turned into a sweater, and I haven't depelled it, so sorry about that. I am very pleased with the result. I think it turned out great, and it really does suit me, so I'm very happy. So I did buy 50 grams more of the Rauma Fivel to actually get it done, but I did get it done. So I used up 518 grams of Rauma Fivel and 134 grams of the Alpaca silk, also by Rauma. When I was buying that yarn, I also did buy more hand-colored yarn, because they have started selling hand-dyed yarn at my local yarn shop, and I couldn't resist. But I don't even remember the colorways, I just wrote down that I bought more. I have logged it in my stash. I'm just not 100% certain which colors I bought, sadly, at that time, because I didn't write it down. But yeah, that was October. So in October I bought 350 grams of yarn, but I used up 712. So all in all I got 362 grams out of my stash. Very pleased with that. Now November was very different. First of all, I'm just going to move this closer to me now that I have more space on the table. The first thing I finished was a brioche project. It was my first brioche project. I would say it's semi-successful. It was a hat at some point. I thought I was ready to do the decreases, but I probably did them a bit too early. So the hat is a bit short, but it's very cute. So, yeah. That's this one. I did at some point make a mistake in the decreases. I think I skipped one, so I added an extra one. And it's a bit loosey-goosey some places. I hadn't done it before. So, yeah. It's not my best work, but it was my first brioche project, so I'm like not very concerned. I would usually wear my hair down if I'm gonna use this one, because it looks a bit silly when you have your hair up. But yeah. And this one used 2 different colors because it's a 2-color brioche project. Both of them are Meditating in Mumbai by Bæstmor, which are hand-dyed, commercially available yarn, at least now in my local yarn shop. And I used 14 grams of one of them and 19 of the other one, and I have no idea why I used different amounts because I held them the same the entire way. So, don't know. Maybe there were difference in the weight of the skins, I don't know, because I didn't weigh them before, I just weighed the leftovers. But the weight of the hat is actually accurate to the amount of yarn used, so I don't know. Very squishy, really love the fabric of Brioche. I want to knit more, but I do not like casting on the amount of stitches that I need, so I haven't made any more Brioche projects. I did start one, but I ripped it out because I realized I wasn't going to do it. So yeah. Anyway, that's one of the projects. That's the third finished project for... No, sorry, we've moved on to November. This is November, of course. So this was the first finished object for November. In November I also went to a different local yarn shop and bought some other hand-dyed yarn because I had been on the lookout for something to use with my orange yarn here at the end. And it's actually all over here. I am going to make a scarf and I needed two colors that went together but still had enough contrast to be able to show the motif when I'm knitting it. Probably not until next fall. We'll see. But anyway, that's 300 grams in. And then I finished the baby blanket that I've been working on for ages. Of course, didn't take any photos. That was the feather and fan baby blanket, or maybe it has different names depending on whether or not you look at the actual pattern or on the Ravelry page. Yeah. Anyway, it's a very beautiful pattern, and I used a few different yarns. These are, yeah, what are these? Fosenfarger, that makes sense. These three together, I made stripes. Very beautiful. Green was the stripe in between alternating blue and orange rows. I liked it a lot. I might have a photo before it was done. Yeah. I really have to get better at actually taking photos. But yeah, these colors, I really like the combination. I think it was beautiful. Now I just have to figure out how I had the yarn in here. Not the easiest. There we go, I think. Yeah. And that used up 33 grams of the yellow one, 33 of the blue one, and 32 of the green one. So almost 100 grams together, but not quite. And in November I also gathered up a lot of my leftovers, took off enough to put in this leftover yarn bowl, I guess. Just so I had enough for repairs, and then I gave away a lot. I gave away 330 grams, and I think 13 different yarns. So in November I had 300 grams coming in and 461 grams going out, which means all in all my stash went down with 161 grams. Now in December I did quite a big project. I had been working on it for a while, doing some trial and error because that was one of the few self-drafted patterns I was working on, and it was a hood for my husband. It is not so easy to show holding it up, but I did have my husband pose for a photo, so I'm going to insert that up here. This part, is even more difficult to show because it's black, but yeah, you have this part over your face and around your neck, and then it goes down, so you could have it just cover your face and be like a I don't know, like a neck warmer thing, but it is quite long, and it's a lot longer in the back, because you should be able to pull it over your head and use it as a hood to keep your hair dry and ears warm. So he's been using that a lot this winter. After making it, I also did make these drawstrings, so you could tighten it around your face, but I did realize that I probably made it too long in the front, so the ties are quite low down. It would have been better if it was just, yeah, maybe not even covering this much off the front, and then longer in the back to pull up, or perhaps separated the hood and the keeping your neck warm part separate. But it was a fun experiment, and my husband has been using it a lot, so finally we have found some yarn he can actually handle, and also a function that's actually helpful. So yeah, this combination has been very good, but it probably won't be the last iteration of this project, because even though it was very frustrating working on it, it was also very rewarding when it worked out. So yeah, might be a version 2.0 next year. We'll see. So that was a December project. In December I also got one hank of yarn as a Christmas present. I was very pleased with that. It was a yarn I already knew about. It was Meditating in Mumbai by Bæstmor, and it is yarn I really do enjoy using. It is a bit more elastic than other sock yarns I've been using, which actually means it's not so hard on my hands, so I like it a lot. So that was a really good present. I also finished 2 more projects. One of the projects I finished was this V-neck t-shirt. It might be a little bit short, but I used up every bit of yarn I had left. There's like, I literally had to make the bind off earlier than I planned, so the ribbing is only like 3 rows. But yeah, I really do like this one, and that used up 54 grams of this light blue, which is untold cotton merino in the colorway poolside blue, and the other one is also cotton merino from Untold in the colorway deep sea, and I used up 228 grams of that. So very happy. I haven't blocked it yet. I finished it right before the end of the year. So yeah, I just really wanted to get some of my projects off the needles so I could start the new year with as few projects as possible, and I did. Now I only have 3 whips, but if you want to see them, you have to come back for a normal episode. So yeah, very pleased with this t-shirt. I really like it. I am looking forward to blocking it. Yeah, putting it over in the pile of knits. Last project, I didn't think I was gonna knit any more socks this year. I did at some point really burn myself out of socks, I guess. And I cast this on really early and knit half a cuff and just set it aside. I didn't even write down the start date. I didn't consider them started yet. And then in December I was like, I really want to knit something else. I'm really bored with the project I'm doing. Let's try this out. And I decided to, instead of doing vanilla socks, which I usually do when I'm using hand-dyed yarn, I did my Under the Oak socks pattern, but instead of doing stripes and colors, I just used the same yarn, which gave it a very fun effect actually. They do still look striped, also because of the yarn is striping itself. This is also Meditating in Mumbai by Bæstmor, and I used 38 grams, which is insane. This I do have small feet. This is the size small, but still, this is insane. I did try them on, they do fit. I am shocked that they do, to be honest. They are very stretchy. It's like the most insanely stretchy thing I have ever touched. So yeah, this is now my favorite sock yarn because it doesn't strain my hands too much, and this was a lot more fun than doing vanilla socks. I think the reason I burned myself out of making handmade socks was because I did a lot of vanilla socks, and keeping track of the amount of rows you've knit just isn't fun, in my opinion. Doing this made it a lot easier because depending on the size socks you're making, you either only have like 10 or at the most 18, I think, rows in between these stripes. So yeah, it's not that much to keep track of. Easier to count which row am I on now. Yeah. I did realize I usually use small circumference needles when I knit socks, and I did have a point where I got to the toes of one of them, had started doing the decreases, and realized that I had to either start digging out my DPNs or find some other way of doing this. And I hate using DPNs, and I didn't want to do magic loop, and I just let them sit for a while. But then I realized someone had recommended using those flex tip needles or whatever they're called. Flexi needles? I don't know. DPNs, but you only need 3 needles instead of 5 because they got this bendy bit in the middle. That worked surprisingly well. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So yeah, don't think I have anything more to say about this. Yeah, used up 38 grams. Also gonna just put them over here. I also haven't blocked them yet, but yeah. I don't know if I'm going to be honest. Not right away. Maybe later. Okay, that means in December I got 100 grams in, and I used up 713 grams. So all in all, my stash went down with 613 grams, which means when all of this is said and done, my stash ended up at 14,981 grams. So under 25 kilos, which was what I wanted. At some point I got a bit curious. How much yarn have I actually used up instead of just how much did my stash go down? Because I have bought yarn in, but I have also removed yarn that I didn't use up. I didn't knit it up, I gave it away. So it doesn't count the same. So I was curious, so I counted up. In May, I actually used a lot of yarn. I knit up 1,222 grams. In June, 860 grams. In July, 760 grams. In August, 1,058 grams. In September, clearly I wasn't feeling very well because I only knit up 125 grams. In October, I knit up 712 grams. In November, 131 grams. And finally, in December, 713 grams. Which, in case you couldn't follow along, I could not, means that I have knit up 5,581 grams throughout the year. Even though my stash only went down with 3,181 grams, I have knit more. So I have actually brought in more yarn than I was, well, not mentally prepared for, but like, I thought I didn't buy that much yarn. And I didn't either, because clearly it's only like 2 kilos. And since I use 5.5 kilos since May, it's not that bad in my opinion. Of course, if I continue to use up, let me see, I gotta have my calculator here, I'm gonna use my phone. This is only for like 8 months of the year, because the first 4 months I didn't track, I hadn't had the idea yet. So if I take this amount of yarn and extrapolate how much yarn I would have used for the entire year. I get to 8.4 kilos a year, which means I would probably get my whole stash down in 4 years if I didn't buy any yarn. Let me just double check that. Let me see, 24, let's just say 25 kilos divided by 8.4 would take me less than 3 years to get my entire stash out if I didn't buy any yarn. If I knit the same amount, same speed, I don't know. That's not a goal for me. I just wanted to be sure that I didn't accumulate so much yarn that I would never be able to use it up, but then again I didn't realize I used almost, in a year I can use almost 10 kilos, that's insane. More likely 8, but still. So I am not nearly as worried as I was when I was in May and was like, Jesus, I got a lot of yarn. But I do have a few, not goals, but maybe thoughts about my stash for the coming year. One thing is, I do enjoy mostly knitting with hand-dyed yarn, and I do have a few ideas for projects I want to do in hand-dyed yarn, but I do also very much enjoy commercial yarn. So I'm going to be more... I didn't even realize I had something sticking out of that one drawer. Anyway, I'm going to be more selective, I think is the best way to say it, with the yarn I'm going to use or buy. I will not buy any more acrylic. I do not enjoy using it. I will try and use up as much acrylic yarn as I can for projects this year. But if I haven't used it at the end of the year, I'm going to give it away. I do not want to just have yarn accumulate in my stash that I do not use. Specifically, that's the yarn that's at the very top here that you cannot see. It's a yarn I bought at Rusta a few years ago. I think I was still a student at that point and had just picked up knitting again after the cat we had that loved to eat yarn had passed away. So I could finally start knitting again without having to be worried about her health, and I could knit with yarn that wasn't natural because it wouldn't matter because she wouldn't eat it. So yeah. But I do think I have used as much as I could out of it for the project I wanted. I have made hats, I have made socks, which, to be honest, you can only wear at home. Not the hat, you can actually wear that outside, but do not put acrylic socks in your boots. You will be very sweaty and uncomfortable. Yes, you know, those are stay-at-home socks. I made a cardigan out of it this year, and that also reminded me of why I haven't used yarn, because it doesn't block out the same way, so all the imperfections kind of show a bit too well, and it's a bit too stiff working with it, and yeah. It does have very nice water repellent properties, so I'm thinking that if I do find time for it, I could use some of it to make either a poncho or like an overcoat or something that I could use when it's raining but not necessarily cold, because it's not necessarily warm. Yeah, I have ideas, but I also have limited time and energy, so if I haven't gotten any of those ideas into an actual project by the end of the year, I'll have to let it go. I will not get rid of this yarn, even though this is acrylic, because I'm using it for a project, and that's a project that I have decided is going to be a really long-term project. It is a blanket for our bed, and it's going to be a really big blanket, and I do not want to force myself to work on that when I'm not in the mood, because it's a crochet project and it hurts my hands more than knitting, so I only work on that when I really want to, and clearly not that often, sadly. Though I have now used up 3 of those giant skeins, so yeah. Sorry. But yeah, so my plans for next year, I'm going to try and get rid of all my acrylic yarn, except that one. I'm going to make more sweaters, because I really do enjoy it. I have redecided what type of sweater I'm going to make with these 2, because I was planning on making some kind of striped project, and like what is it called? There's been a very popular stripe project where you have some colors up here and then different colors down below. I'm thinking something like that, but the leftover yarns I have are in very different amounts. So I'm instead thinking I'm going to make a third Seascape pullover, and just use whatever colors I have as the different stripes. So probably will not end up with more than 1 stripe the same color, but I'm going to have that yarn as the main color. So it's going to be a very neutral sweater, but with very many different stripes, and I do think that's the best idea for it. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I do really like doing this stash down thing, and I am also keeping track of the yarn I'm using when I'm done with projects anyway, so it's not like this is more work than just writing it down, other than filming it. And I have not been camera ready for the past few months, so sorry about that. So yeah, I have now been talking for quite a while, and now you know some of my plans for next year when it comes to my yarn, my plans for my stash in general. Yeah, I do have so many ideas for what I want to do with the yarn I have, so it's not like I feel the need to buy more yarn, but sometimes you do find yarn and you just can't help yourself. Or you get a really good idea and you can't stop yourself from buying the perfect yarn for it either, so. But yeah, I do still want to get my stash down, but mostly because I'm thinking at the end I will probably get rid of maybe 4 kilos of yarn, because I'm removing it from my stash. I have quite a lot of yarn in 2 different colors. So yeah, I have 4 colors, but for some reason 2 of the colors I have almost used up, but the other 2 ones haven't touched the same way. But thinking about it, I think a poncho might be a good idea, because then I could just have something I pull over my head and keep myself dry. Gotta make it real big though, so it's gonna be heavy. Okay, I don't think I have anything more to say, so I'm just gonna close my knitting book so I will stop looking down all the time. I say and look down. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope this has been quite fun. I will try and remember to write down the stats in the description and show the photos of the fidget toddlers that I do have photos of, and I didn't show. I'm sorry, I don't have pictures of everything. I have been terrible at remembering to take photos. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you again another time, perhaps at my regular, normal podcast videos that I will also start filming quite soon. So yeah, bye.